for the past 17 years, I have been studying schools across the country where all demographic groups of students achieve at levels beyond the average statewide. And most recently, we've been working on a study that focuses on schools across the country where Black students achieve multiple indicators of success and do so at levels that are substantially above state averages. Schools where if all schools achieved like these schools, the achievement gap as we know it would no longer exist. And so that is why I feel so honored to be here to share a little bit about what we have been learning from these amazing schools.
Fantastic. And that jumps directly into where I want to go with this, right? Because Mr. Chandler so eloquently put the pieces together around meaning-based interventions and how that is tied to student success. And so with the schools that you've actually been studying across the nation, I would wonder for the Black students to excel, like what are those findings? Like what are you actually seeing in those spaces?
This morning was the first time that I met or heard Mr. Chandler. But there's so much about what he said and what he shared that resonates with what we see in these very successful schools. However, I would go as far as to say that these schools where we see such outstanding outcomes for Black students, they are meaning-based interventions, okay? And so it's all about the extent to which administrators and teachers, school personnel are coming together in a way that asks the question, how can we recreate school in a way that is going to build that sense of belonging, that is going to create that sense of meaning, that's going to help ensure that Black students, and for that matter, all students, experience school as a place that's all about helping them succeed.
That's fantastic, because I think in the conversation you and I were having briefly as we were preparing for this conversation, you were telling me that at the 6 schools that you all identified through your work, and don't forget to shameless plug the book, because the book is coming, right? The book is definitely coming so that you all can figure out the different pieces that he's discussing as to what those interventions look like at those schools. But the students, with the emphasis on Black students and making sure that they succeed, not only did the gap between white and Black students actually significantly decrease, but all the students are actually excelling because of the different types of programs and interventions that were created for the schools. Can you talk a bit about that?
Excellent. Yes. So let me just give you a couple of very specific examples. In this country, the poorest congressional district is the South Bronx of New York. In the South Bronx, there is a school called Concourse Village Elementary School. It is a typical public school, no selective admissions. It's a neighborhood school in the South Bronx. Almost all of the students meet low-income criteria, and quite honestly, low-income criteria does not adequately describe what children at Concourse Village go through, okay? In the state of New York, About 55% of elementary school students demonstrate proficient or advanced performance in English language arts. At Concourse Village Elementary School in the South Bronx, 85% of the black students achieve proficiency in English language arts. Every demographic group, most of the students at Concourse Village are either black or Hispanic. There's a small percentage of white students. But every demographic group is achieving far above the state average. Another example, Young Men's Leadership Academy in Fort Worth, Texas. All-male school serving predominantly African American students, some Latino students. It's a secondary school. In Texas, the state administers an end-of-course algebra test. Across the state of Texas, all students, about 45% of the students perform at grade level or above on that end-of-course algebra test. But at Young Men's Leadership Academy, the black students, 86% of them perform at or above grade level on that end-of-course algebra test. The successes at these schools are phenomenal, but they are not accidental. They are not accidental. They exist because educators have recognized the need to come together and to rethink the norms, to rethink the policies, to rethink the course sequences, to rethink the grading policies, to rethink all the things that we have historically done that don't work for black students. And it's not just an issue of deconstructing or disrupting or deassembling. It's also an issue of assembling and bringing together something better, something that is going to systemically work for the students that they perceive that they have the privilege to serve.
All right.
So the book.
All right. Talk
The
about
book.
this book. There we go.
It's hard writing a book during a pandemic, but I feel so blessed to be here on the threshold of this coming out. So the book is entitled "When Black Students Excel: How Schools Can Engage and Empower Black Students." But just remember, when black students excel. And it's not out yet, but we're at the publishers in the final stages of production. It should be out this fall. I would humbly invite you to look at our center's website, NCUST, National Center for Urban School Transformation, ncust.com. Our center has prominent on the website information about the book and information about a book study, a virtual book study that we will be offering for schools throughout the nation to help folks dig into the book. There'll be each book study session will feature teachers and leaders from these amazing schools, and you'll have opportunities to engage with the authors. So that's ncust.com. The book is When Black Students Excel.
All right. So,
Thank you.
So here's the thing. All right, you wrote it down. The name of the book. Okay. We need the keys today, though. Right.
Okay.
We don't want to wait for the book. I want to make sure that people can walk away and understand what they can be doing to make sure that Black students are excelling and succeeding in their schools. Right. So in this, from the studies that you have done, what are the overarching themes that you all walked away with looking at these schools and what you have found the through line between what is succeeding on their campuses?
So there are three overarching themes. The first is that, okay, so even though this last study focused in deeply on 6 schools, you need to understand that we've been doing this for a while. We've studied over 167 schools that are achieving this kind of success for all demographic groups. But here's the thing. In not one of them do we see that kind of success in the absence of leaders who are convinced that Black students can excel. Okay? Leadership is non-negotiable. If you are a school district and you think that you are going to create an environment where Black students excel, but you put in that principalship or other positions of leadership individuals who don't believe it. They don't think it can happen. They don't think it could happen at their school. They don't think it could happen with these kids. They don't think it could happen with these parents. If they don't believe it, they're right. It won't happen. Okay, that is the first theme, getting that leadership in place, on board. So I don't have the time to give you everything.
I know.
But
first one is leadership,
I'm going to tell you one thing about the leadership, though. So if I'm interviewing somebody to be a leader in a school, one of the first things I'm going to do is say, hey, look at this data. And I'm going to have it all disaggregated. And I'm going to say, now, so tell me what you think. What are the things that you see? What are the things that concern you, right? And if they fail to notice that Black students are performing at lower levels, if they are failing to notice that there are no Black students in that advanced placement math class, if they're failing to notice that there are Black students who are being suspended at disproportionate levels, if they are failing to notice the miserable grade performance of Black students, or even if they notice those things, but don't feel a sense of urgency for changing that, then wave goodbye. They're not ready. They're not ready.
Talk about it.
Okay.
So the first one, it's a good thing we got all the leaders in the room, right? So if we got leaders in here who don't believe, then maybe you might need to step aside.
No, this is the choir. I know.
I know. This is the choir. Because I don't think we got those type of leaders in here, right?
Right.
They're ready for change, ready for action on these campuses.
Right.
All right, so we got number one. We got to have leadership who believes and sees it as a sense of urgency to transform the paradigms on these campuses.
Yes.
We're creating the 21st century way of doing education right now. This is the conversation we're having.
Yes.
What's number two?
Number two is Okay, I gotta tell you a couple of stories to get into number 2.
Go for it.
So one, go into this secondary school, right? And I'm talking to these young black students, and I'm trying to understand, well, what is it about this school that is so special? And then the kids are telling me it's the way they treat us. It's the way they make us feel. And I keep pushing, I keep trying to get that sense of what it is that they're talking about. And this one young man, he's a big guy, he stands up and he says, Mister, it's like this. He goes, I've only been at this school 2 years. My 9th and 10th grade year, I was at another school, and I got kicked out. And I said, well, I see here from this data that you're an A and B student. And he goes, yeah, here. But that wasn't the way it was at my other school. And I said, well, explain that to me. And he said, at the other school, the teachers would see me coming. And then he says, and then they would stand like this, and they would look at me, and they would think, here comes trouble. Here comes my next suspension. Here comes a future high school dropout, right? And that is the way they treated me every day, whether I did anything wrong or not. And then he said, here at this school, and he spread out his arms, and he said, the teachers look at me as if to say, here comes promise. Here comes potential. Here comes a future college graduate. That's the way they see me. That's the way they interact with me. That's the way they make me feel. And that's why I am here every day. That is the spirit that we need to pervade schools throughout this country. So that second theme is that it's all about creating an environment where students know that they're the only reason for this place called school. This isn't about giving adults a job. This is about ensuring the success of a whole generation of children. And so it's all about creating that culture. It's all about creating that environment that sends that message. Now, some people will say, okay, well, that just sounds like fluff. How do you do that? How do you make that happen? So I'm going to tell you one more quick story. So I go into a classroom at Concourse Village Elementary. And I'm looking at the classroom, I'm observing. I see one young man, about 5th grade, black student. I come up beside him and I say, I don't see where your classroom rules are. What are your classroom rules? And he looked at me and then he looked around the room and he goes, rules. And he goes, oh, you mean our core values, okay? Because we don't have rules. We have core values. It's I power, integrity, persistence, optimism, willingness, empathy, respect, and because we have these core values, we don't need rules. Okay? Now, why do I tell you that story? Because when I was there in Concourse Village, there must have been a couple of 100 times when I would hear teachers positively acknowledge Black students, the affirmations that you talked about, okay? Saying, oh, I love the way you did that. It showed such integrity. I love your persistence in working through this problem. I like the way you listened to what she said because it showed a real sense of empathy. Positive after positive after positive after positive after positive. In contrast, when I go to miserable dropout factories for Black students, all I hear is Black students getting the message that you're not good enough. You're not meant for this place. I hear them being told, sit down, be quiet, and being given a lot of messages, either overtly or covertly, that suggest that they aren't school material, right? So shifting that culture in a way that sends the unambiguous message to students that we know you are brilliant. We know you are beautiful. We know you have tremendous capacity to excel. Until we get that right, we're not going to do right for Black students.
Come on. All right. So just make sure everybody is following. What was key number one? Leadership, right? And key number two sounds like culture on campus, relationships with the students, right? So the third theme, though, I think, because it can say we move with love. Okay, yeah, we love them. Oh, yeah, I get that. I can get that feeling from some folks. But what is tied with that? The third theme that goes along with that to make sure that students see the bigger picture of where things are going. What's the third theme?
So many of our Black students are way smarter than we think, right? They size up the situation. And they recognize, y'all don't want me to succeed here. And they will hear teachers say these things in a way, right? They'll hear the high school teacher say, oh, well, there's no way that you're ready for this class because you have not learned this, and the other. So you can sit here and but you're not going to learn this content. The middle school teacher will say, well, you're not really ready to learn these science concepts because you didn't learn this, and this in elementary. Or they'll hear the elementary school teacher, well, hey, you should have learned how to read in in first and second grade, so it's too late now. So you can sit here, but it's just too late. They even black preschool children are hearing educators say, well, you're not ready for preschool because you can't sit and listen quietly when we have story time, right? So what is clear in the minds of black children often is that we have not created a path for their success, right? And so in these very successful schools, they're very deliberate about ensuring that every student that they serve understands, believes, knows that there is a route for them such that they can achieve ambitious dreams. At Young Men's Leadership Academy, even though in Texas there's overall around an 80% graduation rate for African American students, at Young Men's Leadership Academy, they graduate 100% of their black students. And a huge percentage of those students go on to four-year colleges and universities with success. Why? It's not because they select which students they will serve. It's because they know that every student that they have the privilege to serve is brilliant and capable of success. But then they ensure that success by having the programs, by having the strategies, by having the tools that will help lead every student to success. So just a couple of practical things. In so many schools, it's the grading policy that communicates to students, hey, there's no longer any hope for you, right? Because the grade, I don't know when it happened, but at some point, the skies parted, and from the heavens, there came down some tablets that said, we calculate percentages, and then we determine averages, and this is an A, and this is a B, and this is a C, and this is a D, and this means forget about it, right? And so in contrast, at Young Men's Leadership Academy, no. What matters is where you end up, right? So if you take all semester long to develop a deep understanding of these key concepts, then you're good. Because it's not about how you did the first day. It's about where you end up. And folks say, well, wait a minute. They must have kids who aren't trying, who aren't doing this. 100% graduation rate. And they have a huge list of black students who not only are in, but who have graduated from impressive colleges. So all of these things are key in helping students perceive that there is a path for them. And I know, I see we're out, but I wanna also say that in all of these very successful schools, they recognize that creating a path for the success of black students does not mean covering every standard, covering every objective, right? So in some schools, we'll hear teachers say, oh yeah, I have to teach this today, and I have to teach this tomorrow, and next week we're on this, and the following week we're on that. Why? Because we have to cover the curriculum. At one of the schools, a school in St. Louis, Missouri, teachers told us, who cares about covering? We're not in the business of making blankets. We're in the business of teaching. And so what they've done is they've asked themselves, what is the most important, what are the most important concepts our students need to learn? And that's where they focus. And they deliberately create a path to success for students by ensuring that students have the real opportunity to learn that content and learn it well. And a part of that means helping students see how this content is not foreign to them, that it is about them, right? So when you go to Concourse Village, you see Black students reading literature about Black families and written by Black authors. And they're saying, hey, this is about me. This makes sense to me. Even in the first grade, you see that happening. And you see that throughout these schools. Students see a path that's viable for their success.
So, theme number 1 that we heard today was, okay. Theme number 2 was the Korean environment, the culture on the campuses, right? Theme number 3 is the pathway, right? Creating a pathway that everybody understands. The teachers, the staff, but most importantly, the students.
Yes.
Know exactly what it means and what the direction is to succeed. Yes. Right? I think those are 3 solid keys. 3 solid keys, right?
Thank you.
And the truth is, there's so much more, a whole book worth. And so I invite you to go to our website, ncus.com, look up the information, think about purchasing the book, think about participating in the book study. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Dr. Joseph Johnson.
Thank you.